Lovely to see you both. It's nice to...
It's a historic day.
It is a historic day. It is a very historic day. It's a big day. We're going to be talking about that because, of course, today marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day, when we remember the Normandy landings in the Second World War. It's a huge date in the war that marked the start of the campaign to free Western Europe from the Nazis. Well, let's have a look at how the front pages are covering it now. There you go. They've got a whole array, pretty much every paper. The Sun has tears for our heroes, with the King and Queen looking very emotional. The Mail has gone for a picture of an emotional Queen, Camilla, and says that the veterans moved the Queen to tears at the D-Day ceremony. The Mirror says thank you to those who served and those who died. And the Express goes on to say that we're eternally in their debt. Now, yesterday as well saw a mass parachute jump over Normandy as part of the anniversary tribute. There you go, you can see it now, parachutes, it's there, jumped from World War II era planes to mark the event. Also, the King gave a moving speech in Portsmouth to mark the anniversary. Let's have a quick listen to what the King had to say.
As we give thanks for all those who gave so much to win the victory, whose fruits we still enjoy to this day, let us once again commit ourselves always to remember, cherish, and honor those who served that day, and to live up to the freedom they died for by balancing rights with civic responsibilities to our country. For we are all eternally in their debt.
I mean, it always, for me, I don't know how you both feel, but for me, just the enormity of that task is something I always struggled to get my head around. The self-sacrifice, the planning, but just the sheer amount of selflessness and bravery shown by those people on those beaches. It's extraordinary.
But just completely normal people. You sort of have this view, I think, that, oh, it was the military. It wasn't the military. It was what you and I would have to do if it was today. That's what I can't get my head around as well. And I do feel also immensely proud when we do this as a nation. And I think it's what we do best when we acknowledge it and we take the time to acknowledge it. A little bit disappointed and I'm so glad the newspapers didn't lead on any of that, because the political leaders today are making pledges to veterans. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear that today, actually. I don't want to hear what you're going to do. You could say that in a couple of days, fine, but today I don't want to hear Keir Starmer saying what he'll do for veterans. I don't want to hear what Rishi Sunak will do for veterans in so far as policy. This is a day just to acknowledge and remember.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a huge part of my life's work, is talking to veterans, recasting their stories. Spent a lot of time with Ruth Vaughan this week, 98-year-old who worked a bomb machine that was, helping decrypt what was going on during the Normandy landing. So we had the intelligence to know where to place our men. I do think if we're going to keep it relevant, we need to understand what we're doing when we remember. It's not just about a bit of military music, which is triggering. That it's difficult not to shed a tear. The dear old boys on the beaches, their dwindling numbers, the idea of something slipping into the past. I think it's also about how we move forward, because we fought wars, plenty wars, between 1944 and the present day, mainly asymmetrical ones like in Afghanistan and Iraq. But right now, there is a really conventional war going on in the east of Europe, where men are being just as brave as those men. But they are singularly Ukrainian at the moment with our munitions. And the only way you can hold the line, if you're going to learn lessons from D-Day, is by standing together. And the most important thing and the driving success was our unity, together with the 30 nations. The King referenced it in his speech. 30 nations were part of D-Day, and we have to hold the line. Together, we are stronger, and that is as applicable to today, and I think further away from our grasp than it was in 1944.
The politics didn't have a place then.
Well, it did.
But as you said, 30 nations came together, put their differences aside as nations and got together and held the line. Look, let's speak to Simon Viger from 5 News, who is live at the British Normandy Memorial in Vers-sur-Mer in Normandy. Simon, thanks for giving us your time. There are lots of events taking place in Normandy today. What can we expect, Simon?
Hi Alexis. Well, yes, the British Normandy Memorial is new. People thought that there always was a memorial here in Normandy for the British campaign, but actually there wasn't. And something the veterans pointed out 10 years ago was, why have the Canadians got one? Why have the Americans got one? And we don't have one. But now this beautiful memorial with a fly past of 2 Dakotas, as I'm speaking, has now been completed after a long campaign and a lot of fundraising. So exactly 80 years ago, as those 2 Dakotas fly above me, this was Gold Beach. This was where the British were landing as D-Day got underway, and I can tell you that many of the VIPs have already arrived. The service is about to begin here, but I think His Majesty the King is about to arrive too, and he'll be giving a speech here today as well at the Normandy Memorial, which he was desperate to come and visit despite his ongoing cancer treatment.
Simon, you met a D-Day veteran yesterday. It was 100-year-old Bernard Morgan. What was his message to people on D-Day?
Yes, a tremendous privilege, as I know Tessa knows very well because she's interviewed so many. For me to meet these veterans over the years. Bernard Morgan is from Manchester. He's 100 years old. He doesn't look 100 years old. None of them do, really. But 80 years ago, he was a 20-year-old RAF sergeant. He was in charge of code and cipher operators on this beach, on Gold Beach. And he was one of those who wanted this beautiful memorial to be built, and he said that it's been a long campaign but well worth it.
It's very, very important because when we first landed in France on D-Day, there were 20,000 French civilians killed in Normandy, and the French people didn't take very kindly to us at the beginning, but then eventually I've spoken to them and they said, well, that was the price of freedom.
Of course, that was the preamble to the landings in Normandy. Simon, you've been to Normandy now for the 70th, the 75th, and now the 80th anniversary. Sadly, there aren't as many vets now.
No, that's right. I mean, it's the natural march of time, of course, that 5 years ago, the Royal British Legion brought 225 veterans to Normandy, and this year it's brought 23. All of them are around 100 years old. It's always a great privilege to speak to them. Just picking up on something you were saying earlier on, they all make the point that they're not heroes. They come back here to see their mates and pay tribute to their comrades who they believe are the true heroes. And as far as war goes, they do reference, you know, the war today, the wars going on today, the world today, and they point out, many of them, that freedom is not a given. It has to be earned, reflecting Eisenhower's words. That a lot of them are sad at the state of the world at the moment, but you know what they did here 80 years ago was all about fighting for freedom, and they say you sometimes do have to fight for it.
Simon, thank you. An important message. Thank you very much, Simon Viger there. We're going to be talking about D-Day a little bit more later.